You are now listening to Sir Inq's The Experience Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything kink. Now, this podcast is only catered to those that are 18 and above and may not be suitable for work, or as we like to say, NSF. But remember, you can always listen to us during your private time. Hello, kinky and kinkers folk out there. My name is Sir Inq.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy. I'm back with another podcast, and this one is titled 0 to 100. Now, this is for my more advanced people in kink and in sexual endeavors, okay? This is for those that have an expanded palate when it comes to sex. Those who have had sexual experiences and sexual practices that go outside the realm of the vanilla lifestyle. So, even though this podcast is geared toward the more advanced individual when it comes to sexuality and sexual practices, for all y'all that are not, okay, sit back and enjoy. We're going to pull back the curtain on a little bit of BDSM kink and some sexual conversation. So you too might be able to be a voyeur in the lifestyle of kink and BDSM and sexual expansion. And so 0 to 100, what do I mean? You cannot take a vanilla person and give them your best sexual session. Act like you've been here before and take your time introducing her to different levels. Patience is key in seduction. And so what happens is, for those of us that have a more expansive palate when it comes to our sexual experiences, if you get a new sex partner, a lot of times they're not as advanced as you are. Most people are vanilla. Most people have the most freaky sex they're going to have is like maybe some handcuffs or, sex outside or, something adventurous, but maybe nothing like going out to a park and tying a person up naked to a tree, or even the role playing of BDSM, dominant, sub, master, slave. These are more deeper mental concepts, and the things that we do in sessions are just a little deeper in concept and deeper in meaning. And that's not something that you can just meet someone and feel like, I like her so much and I just want to give her the best that I got. I really want to turn her out. No. We have to understand, and we have to slow cook this meal for someone that is a vanilla, right? No, you can't microwave it. You can't. It's not going to be instant oats. It's not going to be minute rice. No. We have to slow cook this. This is home cooking here, okay? And so one of the things I would start you with is, how do you introduce your level of sexuality to someone? How do you get into that conversation? Because that can be a testy conversation, right? When we were younger, or the young people, like, how many bodies you have? Like, how many people have you had sex with? Like, that's just ridiculous conversation for people that are sexually mature. People that are mature, period. That's just a ridiculous conversation. Like, you're not getting anything brand new, okay? So unless you have a virgin, and that's a whole nother story. But with that being said, there's ways that you can introduce what you're into. There's ways that you can explore a person's level of sexuality before you get them in the bedroom. And this is key. And so I think right now, guys, like there's such a layup out there for everybody. There's such a layup. And that layup is the 50 Shades of Grey movie. Now, I have certain issues with that movie. Not saying that it wasn't good. You know, it's a movie, and it did what it's supposed to do. It's sensationalism, and and people bid on it. People loved it. So the reason why I say the 50 Shades of Grey movie is such a great introduction. You could just jokingly say, hey, what are you into? Are you into like the 50 Shades of Grey? Everybody likes 50 Shades of Grey. You could just throw that out there casually like that, jokingly. Like, are you Mary Poppins? Like, are you more Mary Poppins? Or are you more 50 Shades of Grey? Right? You can ask those kind of conversations, Are you more Clark Kent or are you more Christian Grey? Bruce Wayne with all the toys, things like that. There's ways to introduce that conversation to open up the conversation about sexuality and where you are on the scale of vanilla to freaky, and then you could always get into like, oh, well, what's your most you might not even want to ask what's your wildest what is your wildest sexual experience. A lot of people may not want to even say that, right? Not especially early on. So you can ask like, what's one of your fantasies? What is one of your fantasies? And then you can open up the door that way. But again, you do not want to have something in your mind and then you get into a session with, you get into a sexual position with someone and you just bring out the ball gag and then the flogger and overwhelm them with this deeper level that you had. And it takes a lot of trust to get people in some of these positions. And sometimes people will go along for the ride because they don't want to ruin the mood. And they might be a little curious, but they may not be, get hogtied curious, right? And so we need to have that understanding about ourselves and the deepness of our own sexuality, but how that deepness might be for some. It could be, oh, okay, that's 6 feet deep. Okay, I like swimming in the deep end of the pool. And for some people, that might look like you might look like 20 feet deep. I mean, I've had that happen. And Lord forbid you have some like you go somewhere, you have a one night stand or someone you've been talking to, and this is the first time y'all gonna have sex, or the first time y'all meet, and y'all just vibing so strong that y'all get in the mode, and clothes is coming off and all that, and you don't want to bust out choking her and smacking her in her face like that's a little aggressive early. And though it is work for you, right? And the effect that it will give someone, you know, when you're having sex and you choke them a little bit, or you smack them in the face, or you're being aggressive, like the kind of release that can give someone. But someone that's never thought about sex that way or experienced that may feel like that's abuse, even though you're just being intense. Intensity in sex is different for a lot of people. Some people are just more into making love and romantic sex, even if that includes doggy style. Doggy style can be romantic, gang. but their level might be that. So it's also your view of sex, your view of, some people bring their view of sex and love to the bedroom. So some people want to be loved. They want you to make love to them. They don't want you to, hog time and dog them. They don't want to get on their knees and blow you off. They may not be used to that. Someone telling them, get on your fucking knees and suck this cock. Like they're not used to that. I remember years ago, I had a young lady and we were in the mix. And, it was good. And I was like, yo, suck my dick. And she's like, what? I was like, suck my dick. And she was well, why are you saying it like that? I'm like, what do you mean? Suck my dick. But she was just, now she's in her head. Well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, oh, Lord. She never really had no real passionate sex. I like having sex and saying certain things during sex. And we're in the moment, right? And if I'm having sex and a woman is asking, can you eat my pussy? Like, okay, we're gonna do all that. But however, when you're having sex, someone is gonna be more passive and someone's gonna be the more aggressor. And so being the aggressor, especially a man that's dominant, there's certain ways you want to express your domination. And not everybody is used to that. And I realized in that moment, this woman has never had sex where the man was really, really in command and passionate. So she was used to them. And I have to just say this, guys, she's used to them lames. Married, her husband didn't really fuck her and was dealing from guy to guy, but wasn't nobody really giving it to her. And then I'm giving it to her. But she wasn't used to that. And I think she was just looking for love, and that's just not where we were. It's not where we were. But she was more like, love me, talk sweet nothings to me. It's like, yeah, no, we're not even there in our connection and our relationship to warrant making love. This is, we're fucking, clearly. And let's not get this confused. But she has her needs, I have my needs. And at that point, then I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to be having sex with her too much more. It wasn't really worth it. Because she's a wilting flower. I don't like wilting flowers. I need someone that has a certain level of submission. And submission without feeling like you're being demeaned by me saying, suck my dick while I'm balls deep inside her. If I say that's what I want, let's go. Enjoy being directed. But I could tell she's used to doing all that because she had lazy lovers. And that's what happens when guys are lazy lovers. Like, you allow these women to take charge, and then when they finally deal with somebody that they don't have to teach them anything or ask them to do anything, but get their dick hard, now it's different territory for them. And the territory I'm on is this can be more addictive. But the women have ego issues. Not all women, but a lot of women have ego issues. And those ego issues can come into the bedroom. They've been taught, don't be second to a man and don't take no orders from a man, all that kind of stuff. So they struggling out here with that nonsense. However, that's not what I deal with. I deal with submissive women. And my questions, and what I'm looking for is that. So I don't even deal with women that aren't submissive. But to further our conversation about levels. And so there's levels to the mental side of it too. And so for us that are a little bit more on the advanced and we understand seduction from a mental level, Most people know seduction from a physical level. I'm gonna keep some eye contact, I'm gonna lick my lips, I'm gonna adjust her shirts, her breasts, all those kind of like little touch you. But what about the person or the people that are into the mental aspect of sex? That's leading seduction on early on, and the other person that they're vanilla, they don't even hear or see the cues, right? They're completely the frog in the pot, and the heat is being turned up. They don't even know they're cooking, but they're cooking. And so when you have someone like this and they're in a state of unknowing how you're moving, and you can see how they're falling into your web, there comes a responsibility with that. And that responsibility is not to go too far too fast. And your seduction needs to keep rolling out slowly and with levels. Okay. So the first time you have sex, you don't introduce any toys. Okay. You got them in a mind. You got them in a mind. You talking to them during the day. We're gonna go out. We're gonna do this, do that. You throw little hints. A little sexual flirting. You're out. You touch the small of her back. Touch on her arm, different places. You staring at her. You giving her that eye contact, that good conversation, and then you eventually get her in the bed, right? But you don't want to just bust out the whips and the chains. So this first time you have sex with her, you just have to go in with the intention of letting her know who you are without all that. So this might just be regular vanilla sex. And you can sprinkle something in. Maybe when you're doing a dog style, maybe you grab her hair, smack her on the ass, see how she feels about that. See how she feels about that. There's certain little things you can do. Maybe you just put your hand on her face and maybe around her neck gently just to let her feel like you're just kind of controlling her, but not trying to take her breath away, right? And so, well, you're taking her breath away, but you don't want to take it that way. You don't want to take her breathing away. You want to take her breath away, but not her breathing. And so, lightly do it and then see where she's at. Just let her feel like you're more so using your hand on her. You put it on her shoulder or right at the top of her collarbone, right in the middle, just to feel, so she can feel like you're holding her down while you're stroking her. Or you can grab her hair, grab her by the back of her hair while you're on top in a missionary position, and look in her eyes and start talking crazy. Be light with the craziness, but talk a little crazy. Get a little edgy with it. So that's how I would do it, guys. I would slow walk into it, because the flip side of that is you can have somebody that you like so much and you want to show so much of yourself. And you may feel like, I know they don't know what's coming. Or it could be some shit talking woman. And I'm talking from a male to a female, but this goes for women to men too. People that have egos and they talk that ish, like they know what they're doing in the bedroom. And you can kind of tell if they do, if they don't. Or, ladies, you have to understand, when you say stuff like that, men are competitive. So men get into competition mode, and it's really kind of stupid, I know, but it's a default setting in our in our manly mechanisms that we will go into default mode and get competitive, and we'll want to outdo you. Now, if you're not on the same level or above, now you don't open up a can of ass whooping that you wasn't really prepared for. But your mouth done sold tickets that your ass can't cash. But your ass is getting cashed out on, gang. Okay? I'm gonna tell you that from the rip. So be careful who you talking dirty to, because you could be talking dirty to a wolf. And I get it. Most of these dudes are lame. So anything you're coming with, ladies, is a lot more than most men have thought about or done. You guys actually play with yourself with toys often to get off. Men do not. Men mostly jerk off. And so the difference here is women are just more sexually in tune with their body because they're not just touching one part of their body to get off. They're touching themselves all over. All you have to do is watch videos of women masturbating with toys or even just with their hands, but they're like touching their vajayjay and their titties. They're touching their vajayjay and their breasts at the same time, or they're licking their fingers and like they get totally into it. Men were just more intense because it's just jerking off. It's way more intense. Now, you can do slower motions and get into it that way, but men don't. I would guess that men normally don't touch themselves all over while they're jerking off. It's more focused on jerking off. One hand jerking off, the other hand holding your phone in your hand, looking at your favorite porn, or reaching for the oil. So, so that's I had to laugh at that, guys. So, but that's just the truth, right? And so, a lot of women are just more in tune with their bodies, and so they already have an advantage over the general population of men. I would say these guys, straight up and down, they're not into nothing really freaky. And so, when you have someone that's more in tune with themselves, they have a greater command of the sexual experiences they're going to have because they know exactly what gets them off. And so don't go selling dreams, because if you go selling dreams, dudes, like these women could be a little more advanced, and if you're not getting them where they want to go and then you bust all early, it's over for you. Really over for you. And least but not last, when you're more sexually advanced, you have to understand that you can take people in different ways. You can take them to places they've never been, and they can be, appreciative of that, love the experience, or they can be extremely turned out, and that can turn against you in a way of them feeling, like needy needing you, being very needy, becoming very possessive. Ladies, if you give a guy a mind blowing experience, he might become real possessive of you. And if that's not what you want, be careful. Take him up. It's like an elevator. If you take him up too fast, stomach hurt. So take him up slow. Okay, guys? This is for the advanced. And for my vanillas, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you enjoyed what I said. And to be clear, some of the things that you may not know about people that are advanced and that are into kink and BDSM, you have to understand that we're bringing this aspect of domination and submission to the table, as well as we're bringing kink to the table, which means sexual apparatuses, sexual novelties, all kinds of different things to the table to give your sexual experience, to open up your sexual experience, to let your body feel sensations that you've never felt before. And I get it. If you're the macho man, you've never really allowed yourself to be pleased. You're the man. Like, you're not supposed to sit there and let her lick on your chest and suck on your nipples. That's gay. All this nonsense that you hear out there. And I totally understand if you're a man and you don't want any kind of anal play. I completely understand that as well. So I'm not going that far. But there are sessions that even I, as a dominant, get to be pleased. Okay? And so, but you have to allow yourself to be pleased. And this is part of that maturation of understanding your body. When you understand your body, then you understand what someone can do to you that can help release certain endorphins and release certain pressures that you're carrying around that has nothing to do with you having an orgasm. There's so much more to sex and your sexuality than just busting a nut. And so I hope that we can get there. But remember, watch who you're taking to 100. Because the issue is, you can create neediness or you can create detachment. Someone that is completely overwhelmed by you and don't want to deal with you. They're like, okay, but I'm all right with you. That's a little too much. That's because they're like, that level right there was something. That was the first time. They can't imagine what the second, the third, or fourth time would be. They're like terrified. And some of their being terrified is they might feel like, wow, you taking me outside of the realms of my thoughts, of even my religious thoughts. You know, their thoughts about religion and what piety is. So we have to really get to know our partners before we lay down with them. Because again, we can't take someone from 0 to 100 without that being a problem. I don't want emotional neediness. I don't want a stalker. And I certainly don't want to turn somebody off to the point where they feel like I was too much. Okay? This is about two people having pleasure. And this is about the more sexually advanced person having mercy and grace, guys. But what do you think? Thank you for listening. Don't forget that you can find me on Substack, on the Inkwell, INQWELL, on Substack, where I'm posting conversation, articles, and also erotic stories on my other Substack that you can find through the Inkwell, called Dirty Writing. But again, until next time, thank you for listening. Peace.
It's that time of the show, and you can find me on all podcast platforms on Sir Inq, The Experience. Okay? Sir Inq, The Experience podcast on all podcast platforms. Thank you for listening, and until next time.